This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is all about the two of us each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week and the most remarkable story, and then doing our best to find a sleeper story, which is one that's kind of going under the radar, which means you've got to look a little bit harder to actually find that one. I mean, I have to look quite hard to find those ones. And then our favourite story of the week, which is a very subjective category. It is a highly, highly competitive, it's a very charged atmosphere in here for these recordings. And so we need an adjudicator every week. Normally we'd be joined by our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. But Adam is a little bit unwell, and his voice is not sounding particularly great. And we had kind of tossed up very briefly kind of doing the show next to his bed, and he could just listen to the arguments and then just this thumb up or thumb down kind of Roman emperor style. So I wouldn't need to speak, but then obviously it's a podcast and you need to actually be able to speak. So we have gone instead to business journalist Jennifer Duke, one of our favourite past guest judges, did a fantastic job, made some excellent decisions, as I recall them.
Did you win?
I actually don't remember, but I think I did. I'm going to pretend that I did. Right. Jen, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here again.
Oh, whoa, hold on. So Jennifer Duke, and you called her Jen. Do you two know each other really well? Just out of interest? I'm just throwing it out there.
No,
because
I'm completely unbiased. What are you trying to suggest, Sean?
Suddenly we have Jen, not Jennifer here. Michael?
I can't help it if I'm just a friendly, affable kind of guy. And I will just point out that Jen has already declared that she's completely unbiased, which is what Adam does every week, and then proceeds to deliver the most kind of biased judgments in history. So
see, I've been gaming Adam now for months and months, and I've really got it down pat. Suddenly, Jen, you're here. And I'm all at sea. So, Michael, did you know that Jennifer and I did work together? We have worked together, like at the Financial Review and different places over the years. So it's not like you're the only friend of Jen's here. I'm friends. We're friends too, aren't we?
Buttering up the judge already.
Totally.
It seems like the first category is not the biggest story. The first category is, in fact, who's the better friend to Jen. All right, let's jump into it. You are right, Sean. It's a little bit trickier this week because we can't pick the stories that we know Adam is going to love. So it's very much let's just see how we go. The biggest story for you this week, what was it?
Well, I mean, they're obviously a big week for economics and personalities and things like that. But I want to get to the fundamentals here. And US interest rates, that's the biggest story of the week. Oh, Michael, I can see your eyes rolling back there. This is big stuff. And if Adam was here, I'd say hot stuff. Jennifer, this is big stuff, right? So inflation in the US for the 12 months to the end of June came in at 3%, down from 4% in May, nearly 5% 2 months earlier. 4 months. Central banks around the world have been trying to get inflation lower. And it looks like the world's most important central bank, the Federal Reserve, is succeeding. Core inflation, which takes out volatile items like food and gas, is still sticky, Michael, one of your favourite words, but at 4.8%, it's way below where it is. Now, this has massive implications globally, but I'm going to kind of focus a little bit more on Australia. Equity markets jumped sharply. Now, the local market rose by quite a few percent this week. It actually, I think it was Tuesday, it hit a 3-month low. And then suddenly it's up 3 or 4% since then. The Aussie dollar jumped above 68 US cents. In the short term, interest rates can determine the direction of currencies. And if there's not many more rate rises in the US, that works against the greenback. The Aussie wins. In bond markets, which have been pretty good at predicting what's going to happen in terms of interest rates, prices now suggest just one more rate hike in Australia. Now, helping that argument were comments from Reserve Bank Governor, or should we call him former Reserve Bank Governor? I don't know. Anyway, Phil Lowe, about whether there needs to be more rate hikes. Maybe, just maybe, this was the week that inflation was slayed. Okay, a little dramatic. I get that. I'm sure, just like Adam, Jen loves drama. A little, but
I do love drama. I really do.
Excellent.
I also love when equities markets do a little better. Got to say, we're all breathing a sigh of relief as of Tuesday, I think.
This is good. This is good. I'm
No,
feeling good about this.
She's already showing signs of bias. No.
Can I just say, Jennifer, keep in mind, substance over style. Because you'll find with Michael, a lot of style, no doubt about it. Melodrama, the whole bit.
You seem very stylish with your slaying of inflation.
Thank you.
And perhaps that's a bit of an early call, don't you think?
She's working against me now, Michael.
Yeah, I know. This is great. It's like one moment she's with you, the next moment she's against you. This is fantastic.
Jen, you've been a journalist for a long while. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. You know that.
All right. May I tell you what the biggest story of the week was? We've heard Sean's entry, but this will be the biggest story because this was such a massive week for Australia on the world stage. And this is kind of really, actually, there were two key events headlining this enormous week. We'll start with the NATO meeting in Lithuania. For one thing, how cool is it that Australia was invited to attend a meeting of the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation? We are a long way from the Atlantic, and yet there we are, just sitting at the table with the big players. And as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese put it, it underscores that Australia is a significant player on the world stage when it comes to defending democracy. And doesn't that just make you feel good? It feels like.
Don't you reckon that like the Canadian Prime Minister would have been looking across saying, "Who's the little bloke over there in the corner?"
I was going to say, Michael, it sounds like you might have not been that popular at school if you're describing NATO as cool, but we'll take it.
That's shots fired.
And to the heart of the matter too, just quietly.
Look, okay. I honestly thought I was only competing with Sean here. Now I'm clearly competing with Jen as well. Okay. Yes, it is cool going to NATO. NATO, now that I say that, I see your point, Jen. It does not reflect well on me. Anyway, but you had the Prime Minister meeting with a who's who of foreign dignitaries. Like, it was just this conga line, this procession of kind of big names. You had the German Chancellor. They signed a $1 billion defense export deal with us. There were members of US Congress, the NATO Secretary General, the Prime Ministers of Denmark and Portugal and the UK, the French President, even the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky. That was the big issue for NATO this week. The alliance obviously refusing to give Ukraine a timeline for membership. A lot of key countries don't want Ukraine to join because under the terms of the NATO agreement, if one NATO country is attacked, the rest are pretty much bound to defend, which would automatically escalate the conflict in Ukraine into a much, much larger, potentially global conflict. Obviously, Zelensky isn't happy about that, but NATO really wrapped up with plenty of commitments of support for the country, even if it's not a member. Australia was part of all that. So just the fact that I'm talking about all these kind of global moves and knowing that Australia was in all of those discussions, that just says something about our place now in the world. Our immersion in the depths of European politics, though, has not helped much with our floundering free trade agreement with the EU. And I mentioned that there were two big events this week. This is the other one. The week started with Trade Minister Don Farrell making an emergency dash to Brussels to try to save it. When I picture that, I kind of picture like a flashing light on top of the aeroplane, like a little an ambulance. The week ended with the agreement pretty much on life support. The big issue here is getting greater access for Australian agricultural products to enter the EU. And considering New Zealand just signed a free trade agreement with the EU that includes wine, apples, honey, even onions.
Onions are pretty great.
Yeah, you can understand why we're a little unhappy that we can't get kind of the equivalent kind of deal. But at this stage, at least, Europe says no. Big implications for Australia, big story. And when you combine that with Australia's seat at the NATO table, the biggest story of the week by far, because we have made it to the big time. Jen.
Ooh, this is a toughie, guys. Look, I don't know if it's just because I wasn't particularly popular at school either, but Michael, I think you're winning me over for this one. I was actually listening about the China trade relations as well, and I think trade is going to be the big story of the next few years.
Hold on. Jennifer, you can't add your stuff in to make his story sound better than what it is.
It's been tabled, Sean. It's been tabled. You can't take it off.
I feel like I'm the judge, not you, Sean. So I can do as I like.
That is where you're so wrong.
So that's a point to me then.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I'm not liking this.
This is
There's still much to go.
this is better than I could possibly have ever anticipated.
Okay, so let's go to the most remarkable story. I feel wounded. Michael, take it away.
Excellent. Now is the time for me to finish the job while you're feeling a little vulnerable, Sean. What's remarkable to me this week is all the drama that's been swirling around the Reserve Bank over the last little while. For an institution full of economists, it has a heck of a lot of intrigue about it. And a lot of that this week has all been about kind of the role of RBA governor, and I'll get to that in a sec. But first to the other part of the drama, it's probably less dramatic, but it is actually quite important and very significant to a business podcast. And these were the changes announced earlier in the week, outlined really. We kind of knew about a lot of them anyway, but they were kind of outlined as to how they would actually work. The number of board meetings will be cut from 11 to 8 per year from next February. They'll have the post-meeting press conferences then as well, which, Jen, I'm sure you would agree, will be very, very exciting and a great opportunity to really kind of get a lot of transparency into these decisions. I mean, you don't have to kind of agree with me now, but I will just take your silence as yes, you do agree. Future RBA board meetings will be longer. Board members will be able to attend the internal staff discussions that happen before the board meetings. One assumes the internal meetings that they'll be attending will be about policy and not like the RBA Social Club and things like that. They probably want to
I was once a member of the RBA Social Club, I'd like to add.
Were you?
I was, because I worked at the Reserve Bank when I left school and I went through university with the Reserve Bank. And the Reserve Bank Social Club, particularly the Wine Society, was particularly good.
Of course it has a wine society.
Of course
that's
has.
What its social club looks like.
Well, I mean,
Breaking news, Sean. That's amazing.
The social club was broader than the Wine Society. So if you actually were really lucky, you got to do both.
That's so funny.
And there's some serious wine connoisseurs there. To the Gregs, if you're listening, thank you very much for teaching me all I know about wine. I won't say their surnames, but...
The Gregs. So there's more than one Greg.
There was Greg C and Greg B, who were both great wine connoisseurs, taught me all I know about wine, which, as it turns out, isn't that much. But, well, there's red
and there's white.
Yeah.
And I learned that thing about grapes from the Fair and Grey podcast the other day.
Ah, nice. Nice work.
Oh, well done.
Sorry, we digress. I just want to say I was a member of the Reserve Bank Social Club at some point.
That's amazing. I'm just glad that they actually had one because I thought I'd mention it in there, not even knowing whether they do. But thank you, Sean. The monetary policy framework, one of the many changes announced, that will undergo a comprehensive review every 5 years. This is all in response to the big review of the Reserve Bank. All very exciting. Plenty of drama this week. So much drama. And then we get to the big decision over who is going to get the top job. And there has just been so much speculation over whether Phil Lowe would be continuing as the RBA governor beyond the end of his term in September. So much speculation, so many names tossed around. And then on Friday, it all just happened in a big hurry. Confirmation that no, Dr. Lowe would not be continuing. And then the big announcement, Michelle Bullock would be taking over the top job. Dr. Bullock is a current deputy governor at the RBA, has been there for years, so very well known, very experienced. Will also be the first ever female governor of the central bank. It's a big job, it's a hard job, it's going to be a heavily scrutinized job, courtesy of those changes that are being made with the additional press conferences, all that kind of thing. But overall, the appointment of Michelle Bullock seems like a pretty popular choice. Good luck to her. A spectacular end to a week of drama, of intrigue, of mystique at the Reserve Bank of Australia, which is not actually a sentence I thought I'd ever say.
The mystique. That's a tough act to follow.
The story of the week, and this has got to play to Jennifer's predilections, shall we say. It's the new research that shows that greenhouse gases from the plastics Australians consume each year is equivalent to pollution from 5.7 million cars or 16 million tonnes. If nothing happens, that'll double by 2050. That is remarkable. Did you say good grief?
Yes, I did.
Oh, excellent response. This is a remarkable category, isn't it? That is ridiculous. Now, this is from the Australian Marine Conservation Society and World Wildlife Fund Australia. So no doubt that when they were calculating this, they took every possible option involved. And a lot of this is the production of these plastics where a lot of the carbons are emitted. It found that runaway plastic use is a significant contributor to climate change. And Australians are heavy plastic users, generating more single-use plastic waste per person than any other country except Singapore. The report argues that Australia has an obligation to consider the greenhouse impacts of all the plastics we import, consume and dispose of. About 83% of the plastics we use, we actually import. We absolutely have a responsibility to do that. I think it's remarkable that in 2023, we still consume so much plastic that it's the equivalent of pollution from 5.7 million cars. Don't you think that's remarkable?
That is bonkers.
It is bonkers. Yeah.
And you're going straight for my heart with that story.
I know.
Oh, that's tough. This is such a tough one. I'm thinking I don't have a rule book here, so am I allowed to give you guys a tie?
Very, very Adam Lang-esque. Very Adam Lang-esque.
Oh, that's allowed, right? I feel like that's been done. We're allowed to do
look,
that.
it's allowed. It's frowned upon, but it is
definitely frowned upon.
I'm okay to be frowned upon. That's fine.
It is certainly allowed, yes.
As long as I don't go to like Fair and Greed jail, that's fine.
I wonder what that would be like. That would be like having to listen to the weekend edition on repeat for 10 hours. That would be jail.
Oh, just the outtakes of the weekend edition, which are terrible. All right, so it's half a point each?
I think so.
Yeah, so 1.5 to half a point. I'm not feeling good about today's show.
I, on the flip side, am feeling rather good. This is promising, except for the fact that we are heading shortly into the sleeper story of the week, which to date has been my my undoing on pretty much every single show we have ever done, except for this week. I have faith. We'll come back in a moment and find a sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we are joined this week by our special guest judge, business journalist, Jennifer, aka Jen Duke. And she's made some very good decisions so far. We are 1.5 to 0.5 with me slightly in the lead. We're looking for a sleeper story, the story that's maybe flying under the radar a little bit or is going to become a bigger story further down the track. What have you got for us?
I reckon the surge in house prices might just be running out of steam.
Ooh.
What's
another
that?
big call today.
Sean, big call Aylmer.
Yeah, but you've got to pick at some point. You got to say that was the week, and this could be it because we already saw signs of that last month when the pace of price rises slowed. This week, CoreLogic data showed that there has been a jump in out of season listings, they called it, and that should put downward pressure on prices. So fresh stock in Sydney rose by nearly 600 in the 4 weeks to July 9. That's about 11% higher than the 5-year average. In Melbourne, it was up 10%, 11% in Brisbane, 11% in Adelaide, 9% in Perth. While new listings in the combined capital cities are still below the 5-year average, the gap is narrowing. The questions are why is it happening and what does it mean? The why might be the impact of interest rates. It appears that investment homes are certainly hitting the market again. Many people are seeing the higher prices. They want to cash in. Maybe that's the reason. Mind you, prices in most capital cities are still well below their peaks. Maybe homeowners are just finding it too tough. The big bank bosses hinted at that during the week, though they said homeowners were pretty resilient and arrears and things like that haven't gotten out of control as yet. What does it mean is an even more interesting question. More supply, pretty simple, should take the wind out of price rises. I reckon the next couple of months, it's going to be very, very interesting just to see what happens to house prices. Still got demand, high supply. Anyone who's done Economics 101 knows the outcome of that should be, if not lower prices, at least slower price rises. We're going to hear a lot more about it.
I think the key word there might be should. Housing never seems to do anything predictable.
You know what? The only thing that's predictable here is Sean choosing a story that is inappropriate for the sleeper story category.
Ooh.
Because I don't think we can ever describe the property market as a sleeper story because I have tried it before and you have pulled me up on it, Sean. I was marked down horrendously. Not saying, Jen, that you need to do that as well.
I think badgering the judge should actually be worth a minus point.
I am leading her to the correct decision.
Let's move on in the next category. Just won that one. You've been red carded, Michael.
No. Look, we can't describe the property market as a sleeper story. I'm going to leave that one alone. But if I walked up to John Doe actually, no, John Doe would be dead. If I walked up to Joe Citizen in the street and asked him, I said, Joe, have you ever heard of black pod disease? Then good old Joe Citizen would say, no, Michael, I haven't heard of black pod disease. Of course not. And I would say, Joe, look down. That top deck bar you're eating, that picnic, that crunch, the curly whirly you're eating right now, the flake you're eating, that
you make me hungry.
There is a reason why that has cost so much more today than it did a couple of months ago, and it is because of black pod disease. There is a crisis in the chocolate world, and nobody is talking about it.
Are you taking this category seriously, Michael, or not? Just out of interest.
Yes, I am, Sean. I don't toss around words like crisis willy-nilly. There is a crisis in the chocolate world. The price of cocoa, obviously the main ingredient for chocolate, has hit a 12-year high. You got heavy rains across West Africa that have accelerated the spread of black pod disease, which causes cocoa pods to turn black, obviously, and then rot. And farmers are seeing it in the Ivory Coast and Ghana and Nigeria. They're all reporting signs of black pod disease. Cocoa prices are more than 40% higher than a year ago. The global price of sugar also at its highest level in 12 years. Now, little aside here, and I learnt this from you this week, Sean, that all of this has a surprisingly large impact on consumption. I would have thought that chocolate is just something that people buy anyway because it's an addiction, right? But apparently, according to the ABS, as you said this week, Sean, a 1% increase in chocolate prices causes a 7% drop in consumption. Can you imagine being the person at the ABS assigned to study the impact of chocolate prices? Like they're having their kind of morning meeting going like, okay, Mary, you're doing CPI and Stephen, you're doing capital expenditure and Frank, you're on labour force. And you, Jen, you're on chocolate.
That sounds amazing.
And even think of the tax deductions. You could just go out and buy all the chocolate you want and just claim it all. I'm not giving tax advice here, but one could say that maybe that would all be deductible because you say, I'm researching for the ABS to check to see whether it's more expensive. Anyway, sleeper story of the week, black pod disease. Nobody's talking about it. It is the very definition of a sleeper story.
I'm a huge chocoholic, so you're winning me over, Michael, on this one. My favorite chocolate, 99% dark chocolate Lindt, which is why the cocoa content is so high. Yeah, it's so good. So good. Have you had it?
With a cup of tea? I have. It's too much. It's too strong for me.
Really? It comes in like a gold, I think maybe it's the packaging that I'm sold on, but it's like there's a gold sheath over it and it's in plastic and the whole thing. It looks really fancy.
But don't you think it's like flowery almost? Too cocoa-y.
Flowery? No, it's perfect. It's like the best chocolate in the world.
And with 99% cocoa, you would really be bearing the brunt of this sleeper story.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish that my chocolate consumption had dropped in line with the ABS's analysis, to be honest.
Black pod disease is really affecting your life.
It may. It really may. As the prices rise, I might have to have some serious conversations at home.
So
I think that's one to you.
No. Hold on. Have I think?
Do you want to re-prosecute this, Sean?
I'm not going to re-prosecute it. I think that Adam didn't pass on the criteria for the judging here. That's all I'm going to say. But let's just move on.
Are you questioning my judgment? That's fun. We've still got another category to go.
I've lost already, you see. 2.5 to half. I can't win. I'm on the attack. That's how it goes.
I might come back at some point. Then I'll have to judge again.
Oh, that's a good point.
Keep me on side.
We can't burn our bridges now, Sean. Okay. Shall we do the favourite story of the week?
Let's.
Shall I go first on this one?
Yeah, go first on this one.
Okay. I like stories about companies just taking a punt, just doing things a little bit differently, seeing if it works. And in this case, it's paid off, right? So this is one of Japan's largest companies wanting to improve productivity a decade ago. So the new CEO came in and thought, right, instead of getting everyone to work harder and work longer hours and work through the night, kind of Elon Musk style, he would take probably a slightly counterintuitive approach and actually ban them from working after 8 p.m. No more overtime pay. So you can imagine it would just be like an instant ghost town after 8 o'clock now. And they could come in early and work instead. You fast forward a decade, and doesn't that CEO look like a genius now? Because profit per worker is 5 times higher. There are some other things, weak again and higher commodity prices have helped, obviously. But I have no doubt at all, having examined this closely, that the fundamental changes made by this boss were the key to the improvement. I actually have nothing to back that up, but I believe it to be the case. The best part of this story overall, an unexpected baby boom, because you have more of the company's staff now have been having babies. They're going on parental leave, which for a country with an aging population is exactly what they want to hear. So clearly, not working after 8 p.m. means they were able to go home, maybe have a nice romantic dinner, possibly with candles. I don't know. I'm speculating here. A little bit of music, pop some Bee Gees on, maybe an episode of Game of Thrones.
Oh, that'd get them going. Game of Thrones.
Well, I had to do a bit of research to see what was the big TV show of kind of 2015, because I figured that was kind of around the time when everyone was kind of doing this. And Game of Thrones was kind of number one. So, and then, yeah, nothing gets you in the mood like dragons, apparently. Bring on the baby boom.
Game of Thrones is an aphrodisiac. That's a new one.
Yeah, it is. And so it's a big call. Much like Sean, big call Aylmer, I'm willing to make that call as well. I just think it's a nice story, don't you? I just like bosses trying different things. Like the first boss who said, I reckon we can get all of this work done in 4 days, not 5. You got everyone else laughing at them, but they go and do it anyway. They are a trailblazer. They're a pioneer. And all of a sudden, you've got the 4-day working week. Like, good on bosses who are willing to just think outside the box. That's it for me. I'm done. No melodrama at all.
So when this story came up during the week, Jennifer, I just want you to know that the lead was about this company, I Taught You, and Michael couldn't say the word, an ironic name for a company that's
I know, I was like, that seems really awkward, actually.
It does. And Michael couldn't say the name, so he deliberately skipped it in the introduction and gave it to me. And I was just interested in this story. You don't seem to be able to say that word, Michael.
Because it's the key facts, Sean. Just like it's just about distilling the information down to what people want to know. And I think what people want to know is they want to know whether there were candles at the romantic dinner. They don't want to know what company this was.
Okay. I'm going to tell you about my favourite story. Surely everyone loves this one. Domestic airfares have fallen to their lowest level in a year. The very aptly named, let me get a breath here, Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics Real Domestic Airfare Index. Doesn't that roll off the phone? What's it? Diff.
They're not spending a lot of money on branding, clearly.
No, definitely not. And it's our money, so that's good. Anyway, the well-named Bureau of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Economics Real Domestic Airfare Index shows the best discount airfares came in at 63 units compared to 70 in June, 61 last year. Don't worry about the units. It's just sort of the differences that you've got to worry about. The result is way down from the 111 recorded at the end of last year. We are talking economy airfares here. Business class tickets are still pretty expensive. I was excited about that. And then I was really excited by the news that Indonesia is now the new favourite travel destination of Australians. Think Bali, leapfrogging New Zealand. Now, I have been to Bali. Have you ever been to Bali, Jen?
No, I haven't, but I really want to go. So you're probably slowly winning me over with this one.
Excellent. So Bali's Indonesia's our new favourite travel destinations, but I think it was 92 or 3% of the travel to Indonesia is Bali. I think that was a number. Leapfrogging New Zealand, there were almost 108,000 Australians returning from short-term visits to Indo in May compared to 73,000 from New Zealand, according to the Bureau of Statistics. Fiji is another destination attracting crowds, while India and Singapore are also moving up the rankings. Quick shout out to Bam Bam, my brother. He lives in Singapore. Birthday yesterday. There you go. The number of travellers to the US remains well below pre-pandemic levels, while there's steady growth again in trips to the United Kingdom, Thailand and Japan. And then add in the fact that I'm going on holidays in about 4 weeks' time. How can this not be my favourite story? Absolutely it is.
Happy birthday to Bam Bam. Awesome name.
Thank you. Yeah.
Love that. Yes, I think, Sean, you're winning this one for me because I'm a little bit obsessed with international travel at the moment. Now that we can all finally do it again, everyone that I know wants to go overseas and is just constantly trying to find ways to bring that cost down and waiting for those flight prices to drop. So that's very pleasing to hear. And I hope you have a really nice time on your holiday as well, actually.
Now, I don't know the listeners realise this yet. We're not allowed to say it. But when I'm away, we have a special guest host coming. Jennifer Duke, come on down.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, no, we're very excited. I mean, you got to put up with Michael, though.
That's a bonus. That's a plus.
Lovely.
That's one of the work perks.
Work perks.
That's why I can't do it for the long term. Sorry, Michael.
Oh, that is...
Too much exposure to Michael.
God, this is savage. Now it's like being back at school. Goodness me. All right, well, let's just quickly reassess the final scores. 2.5 to 1.5, which I think is... I'm not familiar with this, but it looks like a victory to me. Thank you so much, Jen, for being our guest judge today, and we are very much looking forward to spending a lot more time with you while Sean is gallivanting around the world complaining about the US dollar.
I can't wait. Hopefully I'll manage to keep up in his absence.
I have no doubt you'll surpass me. And, I don't know whether you've... like when you've had jobs and you think you're doing a really good job and then you go away and someone steps in for you and you look at what they're doing and you suddenly think to yourself, oh, that's actually much better than what I was doing. And it happens to me when I was editing papers and that. I'd go away and someone else would do it and I'd think, oh, they're actually better than me.
I feel like you might just be your own worst critic, possibly. But no pressure. No pressure here.
You'll be fantastic, Jen. I'm just disappointed that I won't be working with you and you get stuck with Michael.
I'm very excited to have a lot more chats and to talk a lot more about the business news because it's all of our favourite topics, I think.
Absolutely.
And I feel like you guys have a secret challenge to squeeze Elon Musk into every single episode. Is that a real thing?
Broadly.
He squeezes himself in.
It's true.
He does. Once Donald Trump left us, we needed someone to replace him.
Indeed. All right. Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed Business News. Have a great weekend.